McGarry. I'm the coach licensing manager for NICA National. I've been in this role since January of this year, but I've been a coach in NICA for over 7 years now. I've been with the Wisconsin League here in Madison, Wisconsin since it started. My team this year has, I just checked, we updated our numbers. We have over 140 student athletes and over 70 coaches on just my team this year, which is bananas. We started, I think my first practice ever, we had like 8 kids. And I was like, this is a lot of kids. Like, this is pretty cool. And we finished that first year with 14. And now we're like 100 times more than that. We're a lot more, a lot more than that. That was bad math right there. But it's pretty awesome. It's super fun and I love it. And that's what I do. Before I was I was a special education teacher, and I did that for 12 years. And now I get to like help coaches, NICA coaches get stoked on bikes, on how to teach kids how to do skills, how to teach kids how to be awesome humans once they leave our programs, and build community, which is nuts. So that's me. And again, I'm based in Madison, Wisconsin. I'm going to turn it over to the other NICA human who's on the call, Melissa Davies. Why don't you introduce yourself, Melissa Davies?
Awesome. Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me. My name is Melissa Davies. I am the NICA Program Manager of Adventure, part of the coach licensing team. I've been with NICA for 4 years. I don't have the clout that Mike has of 7, which is pretty rad. And I also get to fill the role of race director here within the Pennsylvania League. I've been a part of the Pennsylvania League for those whole 4 years as the race director. My background prior to getting to work with NICA was a teacher. I taught high school biology, chemistry, and then my primary focus was in outdoor or experiential ed. So I was taking kids on really rad long trips, typically in the rock climbing and backpacking world. My favorite age group is middle school, which can't be said of most people, but I love 7th and 8th grade, particularly student athletes. And I am here in State College based. I've got 2 small humans that I made. I love that I get to make humans. They're 2 rad ones. And again, really awesome to be here with you all tonight. Thanks.
Thanks, Melissa Davies. Hey, Jen Malik, you're here too. Why don't you say hi?
Yeah, so I just wanted to say hi and introduce myself to those of you who maybe haven't met me or haven't a clue who I am, but my name is Jen Malik. I am the Ohio League Director, so I'm the person who is basically getting NICA here in Ohio and getting it set. And I just wanted to say thank you to all of you guys for coming and showing interest in coaching or being a part of this program. So let's do great things.
There you go. All right. So while we're looking at these results, so again, is the title of coach intimidating to you? That's pretty good. So like 91%, 20 out of the 22 that were able to respond said no. That's a pretty high no response. So that's awesome. And I know the title of this was like, what's it like to be a NICA coach? But sometimes I think when people hear coach, they think, oh my gosh, like I got to be like amazing at this, and it's a little scary. And it's okay for it to be a little scary too. But that's awesome. So only a couple of you thought it was kind of intimidating. I've been a coach for a long time. And I remember when I got that coach title, it was like, this is different, right? I'm in charge. 95% of you said you could still remember your best coach, right? Best coach or teacher. Awesome, me too. And then that idea of remembering your worst coach or teacher. Sometimes this gets flipped, right? Like sometimes people are like, I totally, absolutely 100% remember my worst one, but it's always high, right? Like you kind of remember both of them because it's emotional. All right, so great. You guys want to be coaches. This is what we're going to learn today through this and through our interaction. So our objective is that potential coaches will be able to, at the end of this, define NICA as youth development that uses mountain bikes as a tool to achieve that goal, right? We're going to define what it means to be a NICA coach. We're going to identify some qualities of a great NICA coach, and we're going to outline what a NICA team practice could look like. Okay? A couple different ways. And then that you'll be able to ask questions and determine next steps for yourself. All right. Sound good? I think we can do those. I might make you power clap at some point on the internet, which is really funny because everybody claps at a different time. But we'll get there. We'll get there. Here we go. All right. So NICA, right? Like, you can raise your real hand. Who heard of NICA before it started, like before Jen Malik and the Ohio Interscholastic team started going around? So before Jen did anything, so a couple of you, I'm seeing some hands up, right? So like you've heard of it before, right? And now, so we've got some more people, it's gaining some momentum in Ohio, right? So I think the awesome thing about NICA and the way that it kind of comes out is that kids just develop into these amazing humans coming through these programs. So the mission of NICA is that we build strong minds, bodies, characters, and community through cycling. One of the things that I think is awesome through the kids that have come through my program that are now adults, that once they leave this kind of like amazing cycling community that they've been a part of, that NICA has created for them and fostered, once they leave it and they go to other locations, they either seek out other NICA kids, or if it's not there, they create that community where they end up, right? So they go out and they embody these. I've been with NICA long enough now that I've seen some of my kids that were with me 7+ years ago are out, you know, graduate college, doing things, giving back to their communities, and still cycling, and it's pretty awesome. So the mission is that building strong minds, bodies, and characters and community through cycling, right? In nowhere is it like we are going to create the next world champion, national champion, you know, UCI overall, right? It may happen, right? It's already happened with Kate Courtney, but that was not the mission of NICA, right? It's to create awesome cycling community that creates a really positive, great space for kids. And the side product of that is that we keep student athletes that have talent in great programs surrounded by really positive people that let them still enjoy the sport and not get burned out with it. So the vision as well, right? Coming off of that mission is that every youth is empowered to be part of a thriving and engaged cycling community. We create a really great community for them to be a part of, and we want to make that happen for as many youth as we can, right? So we got to be everywhere. All right. Last one of the kind of NICA overall stuff is the core values, right? So fun. Number one is fun. It's got to be fun. Every practice has got to be fun, even if it's type 2 fun sometimes when you're like, man, that really hurt while I was doing it. But afterwards, when we like did that ride and we high-fived, maybe not this year, but when we like air high-fived and like did rock and roll kicks afterwards, we were like, that was fun, even though it hurt. This idea of inclusivity and like intentionally being inclusive, welcoming to as many people as you can, inviting them in, being friendly, being warm is a big part of what we do. Not just the kids and the families that are already into mountain biking, that are already into cycling, making a spot for everybody. And doing that with equity. So giving what the student athletes and the families and the communities need, providing that for them to get them into our sport. Respect is always that kind of like, we want to respect ourselves, we want to respect the sport, we want to respect our competitors, we want to respect our community, which brings us to our last one of community. And then I think sometimes we do the unofficial last one with Melissa Davies and John Caston and I, the coach licensing team, of enthusiasm. So it actually spells fierce instead of just fierce without the E. You got to be enthusiastic and stoked about what you're doing, because mountain bikers are usually pretty stoked. So if you can bring that stoke and that enthusiasm to the kids feel it, the parents feel it, they turn into coaches, and then it just goes everywhere, all right? In that, we've got this idea of what NICA programming is. All the way over to kind of the left, this idea of performance in interscholastic sports, is I think what a lot of people think of what NICA is when they first get introduced to it, because we have a lot of great images, right? NICA has a lot of great images of racing and race events and like finish line feelings and like all the like production, these amazing venues and events that happen. Jen just came back from Indiana, right? So Jen got to see an awesome event in Indiana with like all the race production and the professionalism. That's amazing, right? I talk to my student athletes all the time when it's their first race. Like, you're going to show up at this venue and you're going to be blown away. And kids show up and they're like, football is a big deal in Wisconsin. I'm sure it's kind of a big deal everywhere in this country. But they show up and they're like, this is way bigger than a football game, right? Like what happens and what they see. And it's all for them. There's no adults that get to race. So NICA puts on amazing races, right? And amazing events. But on top of that, we create really great programs that teach the kids the fundamentals, the skills to have fun, to do things. And included in that wheel is this idea of experiential education and adventure, which is Melissa's, like, that's her wheelhouse, right? Like, all of this is NICA programming, right? Not one, you don't choose to be like a skills or a fundamental athlete, a performance athlete, an adventure athlete. All the athletes that go through your programs, hopefully, get a bit of all of this, right? They get a bit of fundamentals, they get a bit of adventure, they get a bit of performance. They might like one more than the other, right? They might be like, I really like the adventure side of mountain biking. That's me. Or I really like the performance and competition side of it. But they're going to get that well-rounded experience, right? That's what we want to provide with NICA, right? Melissa, is that good? Does that sound for you?
Yeah, I think that's great. I think the important part is what you said, Mike, is it's not a pick or choose. We don't have student athletes that specialize. They're not a fun, a skills specialist. We want to create really awesome, well-rounded humans that come out of this. And this triad of our circle are the three buckets that we get to pull from to help our student athletes. So,
yeah,
awesome.
So like my team, like we got a huge team this year, right? Racing's been canceled in Wisconsin. Right. And so some of my student athletes were a little bit bummed as they're like, oh man, no races, but it's opened the door to do more kind of like destination rides, adventure rides, and like training and riding for like a different like end goal, which I think is one of those things that is going to carry over for my athletes next year. Even the ones that are like really competitive and love racing, I think this year is going to really help them love the sport longer and bring it with them afterwards once they're done racing, to be like, oh, I don't need to race to like have a holistic, fun cycling community, or I can race and I can choose. So that's what we want to create. All right, now I've done a lot of good talking at you. Now I'm going to try and get some information for you. This kid is stoked, right? Like he's so stoked right now. But I want you to like take 30 seconds and think about the best coach or teacher that you've ever had. And I want you like just think about it for a little bit. And then once you've got it, I want you to write down like their top 3 kind of qualities in the chat. So think about it. Write down their kind of top 3 qualities in the chat. If you can't chat, just throw it out and Melissa and I will write it down.
Passion. You write the passion.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah. Fun and humor. Good work, team. Challenged me to be better, but was supportive too. Always smiling. Yeah. Fun again. Yeah. David, that's a good one. They got out of the way. It wasn't about them. Yes, understood what motivated. Motivation. Caring, motivation, enthusiasm. We got caring.
High expectations. Oh yeah, good.
Projected confidence in me. Yeah, that's good, Jen. Made focus about my improvement. Joel, good one. Expected good things from all kids without prejudice. Yes. Yeah, presume best intentions. Yeah. And then Heidi brought in push beyond what I thought I could do, believed in me.
So keep writing them if you got it.
Chris
I got another.
My English teacher kicked my butt.
I love that.
My English teacher kicked my butt, but I learned how to write. That's awesome, Chris.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite teachers ever was like totally like was that warm demander, right? Like totally kicked my butt, like would not accept anything but my best all the time. And that's one of those things where you kind of hate it when you're in it and you're like, man, I learned so much. So awesome. So I'm going to, you can keep throwing them in there, but I'm going to run down the list of stuff that I got. I kind of took quick notes, but like, so passion, funny, humor, challenged us, caring, tough, fun, understanding, smiling, motivated, enthusiastic, high expectations, focused on improvement, expected greatness from everybody, and then believed in me. Now, are any of those, nowhere in there, except for maybe like I learned how to write, but that was almost like a product of it. No one was like, was the sickest like mountain biker, or was the best writer, or like totally knew how to teach me how to do a level lift, or like even like with football, like showed me how to long snap really well. Like being a coach is not exclusively about technical knowledge. You want to have some, You don't want to be completely ignorant of the sport you teach, but it's all these other things. You teach kids, you coach student athletes. You don't coach a sport. So if you can connect with student athletes and be that fun, that challenging, that like good, tough, the understanding, motivating person, you can be an awesome NICA coach, right? That is what makes a great coach. And all of you that came here and like are excited about this, and you know that person, you've already got that great example, right? That you can take elements of, right? That is what makes a great coach, right? So you don't have to be an amazing mountain biker to be an amazing mountain bike coach, right? Sometimes amazing mountain bikers are actually not great coaches. I don't know if it's because they're so good at it, they have trouble telling other people how to do it, or they're so good at it that they're afraid to be vulnerable and like say like, oh, I'm not great at that, or I don't quite know how to teach, or I'm a little intimidated to actually like step up in front of a group of 20 middle schoolers and try and teach them something, because that is intimidating, right? So it's really important when you're thinking about yourself or when you're thinking about people to recruit that they don't have to be awesome mountain bikers, right? I think when I started coaching mountain biking, I've been mountain biking kind of my whole life, at least since like early middle school, because that's when it really hit me on like a Trek 820 on like basically what was like gravel roads, which I thought were like the sickest single track in the world at the time.
Right.
But like, that's when I started. And I was probably like, when I started being a NICA coach, I was probably like a B- mountain biker. And now I'm probably like a B+, maybe like an A- mountain biker. But I'm a really good coach and a really good teacher, right? So that is what we need more of, right? So we want great athletes to come in too, but like that idea of how to connect with kids is what's the most important when you're thinking about creating your programs. Again, because NICA is to create strong minds, bodies, and community through cycling, right? And again, that thing, I say it again, I say this a lot to prospective coaches and coaches that are out there, like we coach athletes, not a sport, right? Like the people in front of us are awesome. And those, you know, they may not always be how we want them to be that day, but those are the people in front of us that we're coaching. So a couple more little talky bits here, and then we'll get some more from you all. But again, this idea of what makes a great coach. So I think these three things are really important. You like working with young people, right? Like you like them, right? You find joy in seeing them learn and succeed and grow as people. So you don't want to like hate young people and be a NICA coach. You like working with them, right? Another one is you're willing to learn, right? That's really key, like willing to learn. And not only because like, you know, willing to learn is awesome all the time, but very few of us that are on this call had probably a middle and high school mountain bike coaching program, right? None of us probably had that, unless you are a NICA alum. Maybe if Sylvie's on here, Sylvie had that. She's like the only one, because she was in Minnesota, I think, as an athlete and then a coach, I believe. But she's like the only one. So willing to learn. What does a program look like? What's a NICA program? How do you be a mountain bike coach at a middle and high school level? And then the last one, you're stoked to get more kids on bikes, right? So you're stoked to get kids on bikes. Yeah, Roderick, it didn't exist. I mean, you just kind of rode off road, right? You just kind of like found a weird spot and it was on like a 10 speed or a cruiser, and like you made it, you know, it wasn't called mountain biking. It was like not being on the road. So like, this is what makes a great coach, right? And that also that part of that willing to learn, like the coach supporters and NICA and the people that can help you in Ohio can help teach you those mountain bike skills, and not just those mountain bike skills, but how to teach mountain bike skills to young people, right? So like how to impart that knowledge and those skills and those fundamentals to young people. So that's important, right? And like what we said, like what you said, you knew what kids want from a coach. You already knew it, right? What do kids want from a coach? These are the top 5 things in surveys, right? They want to be respected and encouraged, right? You talked about it, right? Pushed you, challenged you, like expected greatness from you, right? That respect and encouragement. They wanted a positive role model, right? They want somebody who they can look up to. I think this is huge, clear and concise communication, right? If you can really communicate what you want to your student athletes, that's key. They want consistency. They want to know what success means and what it looked like. Someone who listens to them, asks them what their goals are, right? You teach the kids in front of you, not the sport. And then last is knowledge of the sport, right? They want someone who kind of knows what they're doing, but it's not the most important thing, right? Also, totally not the most important thing. Bottom line, right? Kids want a coach that cares. That's the most important thing. And I've said that a lot. And Tim, like you said, like you don't always have to be able to keep up with those super fast varsity riders, right? We can find people to do that, right? There's need for like organization, for team direction, for like coaches to work with the new athletes, right? The younger athletes that may not have that pace. I've been working with, I went out with one of my sophomore groups last week who I used to be able to they were hurting when we rode together sometimes, and I didn't mean to. They destroyed me last week. I don't know what they did in the off season, but like, I was like, guys, like we got to relax a little bit. Yeah, I'm gassed. And they're like, we're fine, Mike. We're fine, Coach Mike. And I'm like, oh, geez, give me a break. So they get fast, right? You train them, you give them good fundamentals, and then they're kids and they get real fast. Well, and like, there's a place for everybody, right? Like, the nice thing about NICA is nobody gets benched. Right? Like if your goal is to be super competitive, awesome. There's a place for you, right? You can set a program for that. Is your goal is to finish a race? Awesome. If your goal is to just ride with the team and like be a part of that astronaut, there's a place. And like, if your goal isn't to be the most competitive and win, it does not hurt the student athlete that wants to be the most competitive.
Exactly.
And vice versa, right? Like there's no like animosity that comes out of like, I have different goals or different objectives than you.
Yeah. For a lot of kids, this is way better than going into a varsity or junior varsity sport just for that reason. If you ride, you're going to ride.
Yep.
Awesome.
My husband framed it. Yeah, my husband framed it, which I thought was awesome. He's compared it to he was a soccer player, typical varsity sport. And his framing and the way we first started talking about this, he's like, if anyone was going to try to come on the soccer team, they were potentially taking away my opportunity to play.
Right.
Versus in the NICA community, if anyone else comes onto a NICA team, they don't take away anyone else's opportunity to play. It just adds more fun, right? It just adds to the community, which I thought was such a refreshing perspective.
One of the other objectives was like, what does a NICA practice look like, right? Like, what does a NICA practice look like? You can, even if you didn't play kind of basketball or football or baseball, I think you can kind of envision what a basketball or football or baseball practice looks like because you've seen it, right? You've either seen it in a movie, right? You watched Bad News Bears, so you know what a baseball practice looks like. There's not a cool pump up movie yet about what middle and high school mountain bike team practice looks like, so we can't even envision it. So what does a NICA practice look like? And as you go through this, and if you do Leader Summit in Ohio, we do practice planning workshops, we give you examples, we give you some, even practice plans, sample practice plans that you can adapt for yourself. But in general, you want to make sure that every practice is fun, right? Because if it's fun, the kids want to be there, they're stoked, and they want to learn, right? Kind of our motto in coach licensing when we're thinking about our season is safety, fun, and learning, right? Those three things. Keep it safe so they can progress, make it fun, and then learning will happen. So make sure that fun is there, right? You're going to want to make sure that you teach skills directly and on purpose, right? You wouldn't you wouldn't have a basketball practice where you didn't teach and drill dribbling, right? Like you got to learn how to dribble. You got to learn how to shoot. You need to teach the skills so the kids know how to do them. And you have the same way to talk about it with everybody so you can give them feedback on it, right? But it's not all skills. We're not going to like show up and do like an hour and a half of like, here's a skills runway, and I want you to do neutral and ready position for 45 minutes until you've absolutely perfected it. No, we're not going to do that. We're going to make sure that we do games, right? That we turn those skills into games, skills games, bike games, and non-bike games to build that community and that team. One of my favorite games that we play on my team is bike soccer. And what it is you throw a soccer ball out and you split people into groups of 5, and you say, all right, try and kick kick this ball through the goal. And it doesn't matter, like the objective of bike soccer is kick and giggle, right? Like it doesn't matter if you score any goals or no goals, but all the skills that come out of it of like, you know, how to brake, how to do slow speed, like cornering, balance, just awareness of other people, communication. Those are the skills. Everybody is kicking the ball and giggling, and nobody's good at bike soccer, right? No one's an all-star. So it's not like, ooh, Jen Malik is so good. Like, I don't even want to compete against her because she's going to destroy us. Like, nobody's good at bike soccer. So no, like those really fast varsity kids can still play with your young kids, and everybody's not good at it. And you learn all these little different skills. So like gamify stuff, right? Teach them the skill, but then gamify it, right? And we give you lots of different games and stuff to play, again, on and off the bike, to build community and to build skills, right? Melissa Davies, our adventure coordinator on the call, has created an awesome reference of great kind of community and team building games that's part of, you know, the NICA package. When you start being a coach, we give you these resources, help you figure out when and where to use them, and they're there. We don't just say like, here you go, here's a team, go forth and wreak havoc. I coached my son's U5 soccer team for a season. And I've been a coach at this point for a long time. I coached football and track and field and mountain biking. I'd had two state championship track and field teams. And I was like, oh, I can probably coach my son's U5 soccer team. And I showed up and they gave me a bag of balls and some cones and we're like, cool, we'll see you in 8 weeks. And it was like, geez, this is terrifying. Like, I should know what I'm doing. I'm a good coach. We're not going to do that to you, right? Like, we're going to give you the education, we're going to give you the resources and help you create great programs so you don't show up at your first practice and you're like, I got no idea what to do, and you feel silly and embarrassed, which is what I felt like in front of a bunch of like 5-year-olds. I was like, let's just play games. Let's just kick around a soccer ball. You also do some short course riding, right? So setting up kind of a little bit of an obstacle course. Cyclocross is probably popular in Ohio because it's kind of popular everywhere. Like, you can set up a little mini cyclocross course for your kids, and that is a great way to see what skills they've got, right? You can see them everywhere. You can set up little obstacles. That can be, and this is a lot of early season stuff. Once you've figured out kind of what their skills are like and you know they can handle it, get them out, do some trail riding. Riding bikes in the dirt is probably the most amazing, fun thing in the world. And you want your kids to get out there, but you also want to make sure that they've got the skills to be safe and do that. So this is kind of the progression. And then you want it to be more fun, right? And then include fun at all times, right? Like, get enthusiastic, get stoked, have your own traditions. Yeah, that's what it looks like. And then, you know, learning and adding progression, right? So it's all about learning and progressing skills. And we're doing that through, you know, safety, fun, and learning. If you keep it about, first off, being safe and progressing slowly, it is fun. You don't want, you know, anybody that's on this, we're mountain bikers. We've probably taken a friend or a partner out mountain biking, and we're like, it's cool, it's fine, just follow me. And because we've mastered or like can clean a trail, it's easy. That is not the case for new mountain bike riders. So don't turn them off that first time out and don't make it safe, right? Progress slowly so they feel safe, then they can have fun, then they can learn. So that's kind of what we want with our NICA programs, right? Does anybody have any questions or who has questions about kind of what a NICA practice could look like, or, you know, things about a NICA practice?
I have one that I'll ask. So what do you do if your school or your area isn't by a mountain bike trail?
Oh yeah. You don't need mountain bike trails for kind of like your skills and games practices, right? So most of the first almost month of my team practices, we're on an open grass field, maybe with a little bit of elevation change. We're learning skills, we're playing games, we're getting to know each other. And I know there's definitely areas in Wisconsin that don't have any trails nearby, so they'll do their weekday practices, like maybe one weekday practice, just working on skills, playing games. And then they'll go do a weekend practice where they go to trails and are able to ride and stuff, and vice versa. Like, I'm lucky in Madison, we have trails that we can pedal to in the city, but it's not tons. And again, like when I said, I've got 140 kids. We're now spread out of like 2 sessions 4 days a week across, like, you know, like some groups practice Monday, Wednesday, some groups practice Tuesday, Thursday, because there's just not that much single track here to spread them out on. But you do not need amazing single track to have a good program. Sometimes having amazing single track can deter from that skill building in games, because you're like, oh, we show up and all we want to do is ride trails. Well, that's not very inclusive to new mountain bike riders, right? New mountain bike riders need a little bit of that skills instruction and gamification and getting to know each other before they feel comfortable riding those trails. So, great question.
Yeah,
thanks, Jen.
yeah. If I can kind of expand on that, Alex's team, they used to twice a week on Tuesdays and Thursdays, they rode at a park that had a few miles of trails, single track, but the vast majority of it was gravel. And that was a great way to get, you know, the younger kids, the middle school kids, and to do it because gravel was gnarly enough for them, but it wasn't quite the thing. And then on every Sunday, they would go somewhere that was maybe 30 minutes, 40 minutes away and do some serious trail riding. So it was a great balance.
Awesome. Thank you, Tim. Cool. What other questions? Yeah, Melissa Davies has got her hand up. Or do you see some in the chat?
I've got my hand up.
Yeah.
A couple in the chat, Mike, 2 times. The same question. Figure we'd address it out loud. How many practices are typical per week for a NICA team?
It varies a lot, right? Ohio is going to be a fall league, right, Jen? I feel like a lot of the fall leagues kind of do, two day a week, like 2 weekday practices, and then maybe, sometimes do a weekend practice. It might not be every weekend. You might, especially as racing happens, right? Like they take up a lot of weekends. My team does 2 days a week. And we've now, without racing this year, have done a lot more kind of like weekend destination practices. I know that some other leagues will do 1 weekday practice and 1 weekend practice. It kind of varies, like kind of anywhere between, 2 to 4 days a week. Four is a lot, because I think a lot of times what I talk about too is like, if you are on that super competitive end of mountain bike racing, NICA practice by itself is not going to be the thing that gets you to that next level, right? So your NICA days are kind of your skills days. And if you're a really hyper competitive racer, you're going to have to do some of that fitness and interval training outside of NICA. Great. So I see a couple of questions in the chat there too. So coach to student ratio on trails, Rowdy, it's 8 student athletes to 2 coaches. One of those coaches has got to be a level 2 or 3 coach, so a little more experienced, or 6 to 1. So 6 student athletes to 1 level 2 or 3 coach. And that is for trail riding. So if you're going to have kind of like open field short course where you can see everybody, that can be less, right? So you don't have to have that ratio for an open field. And then minimum age to be a coach, Chris, is 18. So just because we got to be able to do background checks on coaches. Oh, yes. These are not USA Cycling. These are NICA levels. So NICA is backwards from USA Cycling. So USA Cycling, number 1, right, is the highest level, right? And then 2 and then 3. NICA is the other way around. Level 1 for NICA is like kind of your entry level into it, right? So you sweep rides, you're kind of a general volunteer, but you still have training, right? We don't just still set you out there just like all you did was pass a background check and send a waiver. We kind of help you figure out what your role is and what NICA is. And then level 2 is typically they've gone through some on the bike skills training, so they understand how to teach skills, they understand how to lead rides and be a ride leader. And they've got a little more responsibility. They've gone through first aid and CPR training. And then level 3 coaches are kind of your head coaches, your high will, high skill coaches that have done, more intense first aid. They've gone through a lot more education. They've been coached through kind of how to develop a season plan, practice plans, and how to help develop other coaches on their team. So level 3 is the highest, and that's usually your head coach, team directors, and kind of your high level assistant coaches. Races are actually typically on Sunday with pre-ride being on Saturday. But that is a league decision. Is that what the plan's going to be for Ohio, Jen? Yeah.
Yeah, our races will be on Sundays with pre-ride on Saturday. And then we will have 4 events in our first season. As that grows, we eventually would like to see that number grow, but 4 is a really good starting number to do something small and great.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, 4 is big. And as it grows, right, like, so Wisconsin was at 5 last year. There's other leagues that have 6 kind of total races, but maybe you only race 5 of them just because as you grow. Yeah, race weekends are such a blast too, right? Like showing up for pre-ride and hanging out and, doing grit rides and other things, and camping as a family and with teams is great. Once COVID is over, hopefully we can camp and hang out and share food and equipment again. And because that is a blast, right? Like that is what student athletes remember, right? They love the races, it's fun, but like camping and being at the events and cheering each other on is what people remember. This quote, I quoted myself in here, but so like being a part of NICA is like one of the most fun and rewarding things that I've ever been a part of. Maybe other, like outside of my immediate family and creating two little humans, right? Like NICA is awesome, right? And I was a special education teacher for a long time. So like seeing kids learn and progress and move forward is amazing. This is my team. This is a couple years ago. You can't see our enormous cowbell, but like Bacon is holding a cowbell that's like 3 times the size of my head over there. And costumes became a really big thing. And this was like maybe 2 years ago. Our costume closet has really improved. We have an Easter bunny and a huge, enormous crying baby and Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. But right, like this crew of humans goes out and cheers absolutely everybody on at the races. It doesn't matter what team you're from. It doesn't matter if you're like a rival of ours competing in these races. And again, I air quotes rival, but like they're going to cheer absolutely everybody on. And that's one of the amazing fun things about NICA is that like kids are cheering everybody, right? And it's part of the fun culture there. So.
Yes, I have a question.
Yeah.
And this is just going back to where it said, do you have any recommendations other than going through social media for me to find younger people who would actually be willing to coach the kids while I maybe my wife take care of organizing the team and that sort of thing, and getting jerseys taken care of and all that sort of thing.
I think social media is a great one, Tim. Like if you're in Hamilton, if there's like a trail organization nearby, like reaching out to them. Something that really helped us to get kind of coaches and student athletes is signs at trailheads. Putting up signs at trailheads in the area and just like, hey, like, like those yard signs, right? Like even like the political yard signs, like, hey, what about middle and high school mountain biking? And you put them at trailheads, and that's really gets people excited. And then I think as parents, as kids come on and they're excited, you talk to their parents and you're like, hey, I see that you're 6th grader, especially those middle schoolers, because then you got the parents for like a handful of years. Right. You're like, hey, I see that your kid is excited about this. If you want this program to happen, you should ride with us, right? Like ride with the team, and then you invite them to coach. And then you kind of get them for a handful of years, and they find out how much fun it is to coach and that they get to ride bikes in the dirt a couple times a week. And they're stoked, and then they tell their neighbors, and then everybody wants to be on your team.
Yeah, I mean, that's my major thing right now. I want to do what I can to help organize the team, but I can't really physically coach teenagers, on mountain bikes.
You might not be able to be that ride leader, right, for those trail rides.
Right.
Absolutely.
Well, I can sweep.
Yeah, there you go. And Jen, Jen, how else are you kind of organizing and getting teams together in Ohio?
Yeah, so again, kind of with COVID, it's a little interesting, but one of the things that I've been doing, and if anyone's interested, I can get you some, is we're printing off business cards and stickers. They should be here hopefully this week. It's a cute little like bike launch, almost like NASA looking sticker, that if I see kids on the trail or on the bike, I'm like, hey, do you want a mountain bike sticker? We're starting this Ohio League. And then again, just really encouraging people to contact us through the website or their contact information. Because what I do then is when people fill that out, it goes to my email. And then I have this giant Excel sheet where I keep track of if a parent says they have a rider that wants to participate or if there's someone interested in coaching. And then I also keep track, if they provide it, of their area. So that way, like you mentioned, you're in Hamilton. Like I wrote your name down, I put you in there.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem, I'm on it. And so that way, as that list grows, like I can sort it regionally. And if we say, hey, like in the Cincy area, like maybe Hamilton specifically, like we might have some in Liberty, we might have some in.
Yeah, I was thinking Liberty, Westchester, Oxford, the whole area.
Yeah. And so I actually grew up in Westchester. So I'm like, oh,
there you go.
My sister lives in Hamilton. But Yeah, so doing that to be able to help us connect people. So like the more that we can encourage people to fill that contact us out so I can get that information, the more like I could connect you with someone who, you know, maybe they're an elite rider in that area and they're like, I want to lead the varsity, you know, group or the A group. And then that way, you know, you're doing all the organization, but then you have someone that can go do that ride. Because honestly, like, there are so few people that are in your spot that actually know what NICA is and have that experience to organize the team.
Well, the word is getting out in the bike shops and at the Houston Woods trails, and so it's the word's getting out.
Yeah, and again, like it's a process. So the biggest thing is really trying to encourage people to contact us so that way I can help connect others.
Okay. All right.
Awesome.
Well, thank you, Jen. Thank you.
Wait, I see Chris's hand, and then we'll go to Roderick. Roderick's actual physical hand was up, but Chris did a crazy Zoom move and got his virtual hand up. Nice job, Chris.
That's right. I'm sitting here starting to learn all this technology.
Yeah.
What do you see in different areas of the interplay between CX and NICA?
Yeah, it's tough. Like our seasons overlap. So I've run into that with my team as well. You know, so you could, you know, it's not every weekend that we overlap. And then I think I always left it up to the student athletes, right? Like if they really felt like the cyclocross was what they wanted to do and they wanted to be on that competitive, if they didn't do a NICA race, that was kind of up to them, right? But I always talk to them, I'm like, hey, like, you know, the NICA practices, if you can fit it into your training program for whatever your goals are for either cyclocross or NICA, are going to be really good for your skills. And it's going to help you still love the sport because you get this community then, right? Like riding with people, getting excited about stuff, and just riding bikes in the woods with your friends keeps you loving the sport. Sometimes training, even if you love it, can burn you out. So that was always my kind of motivation. Is like, yep, you can race cycle. I'm not going to like tell you not to race cyclocross or not to race anything, but trying to help them figure out what their goals were for the season in either NICA or cross or other things, and then let them determine, kind of help them walk through that. I had kids that were dual sport for volleyball and mountain biking and cross country. And then, you know, kind of later in the season for us in Wisconsin, you might get some kids that are starting to train really hard for cross country ski. And it was always like, hey, like do what you want, like make NICA what your goal is, and help counsel them through that. Does that help, Chris?
Yeah, and it seems like having the ability to do both, you know, from a mental standpoint and longevity in the sport, just to keep things fresh, really seems to be going over very well with our crew. Just tossing in the mountain biking. You know, Saturday we were in Indianapolis doing cyclocross, and I had a group of them, you know, up in Houston Woods, up in, you know, Tim's neck of the woods. You know, yesterday, you know, riding the trails for a few hours. So it will be exciting to see how everything works out.
Cool. Chris, where are you from?
I'm in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Okay.
And then I'll hop in and kind of tag on that. So also being someone who understands the value of our cross community and not wanting to put the kids in a position to choose between a local cross race and an Ohio race, my goal is to work with OVCX and Neocross and the Columbus, oh my gosh, Cross League. Cap City, thank you. I was like, that is my local series. I don't know why I'm blanking on it right now. To try and see like because they already have their schedules pretty set, as you know, to try and see what those dates are. So that way, if, you know, Cincy 3 or Cincy 2 now is going on, that we're not going to put our race that is potentially going to be at John Bryan that same weekend.
Yeah, that would be fantastic because, like, you know, yesterday, you know, you've raced with Carrie Masters, right?
Yeah.
And she just is loving mountain biking, and it would be awesome to be able to see some of them, maybe to be able to do both, you know, much like, you know, they were outlining before, they can pick and choose between the two and participate in both leagues.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris. We're gonna go to Roderick, Tim, real quick, because Roderick had his hand up.
Go. No, that's fine. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so first I'll also add one more thing too to the conversation about the cyclocross and mountain biking stuff. I think, you know, especially if we're able to do like Jen's talking about balancing out the schedules for them, you know, the mountain biking is going to give them skills that are going to give them an advantage like in a lot of races, you know, like Smith Farms and the OCVX. Like I beat people that I had no business beating in that race because I've been mountain biking for 29 years, right? Because of the technical nature of that course. So, you know, you can use that as a encouragement for them that it's going to help them on those real technical courses to be able to pass people where, you know, the roadies that are out there just laying down watts have to hit their brakes too much. So the other thing, as far as trying to find athletes, another thing I would encourage people to think about is reaching out to the schools through their social media presence, and looking for connections. Because I know, gosh, just in my school district, like 3 or 4 of the schools have people who are teachers there who race. Like, just letting them know what you're doing and seeing if you can find those connections to teach, like people that teach there or families that are involved there to get that connection. They may be able to point you in it, and then just asking for an opportunity to put it in an announcement or something, right? I had announcements run for, when was it? So like a year ago when I was like looking at the possibility of starting a team, before my life turned upside down, I put in announcements for about a week, and then just had a meeting one day after school. And even without any like real concrete sort of a season is coming, just kind of gauging interest, I had a lot of kids show up, which I wasn't expecting, honestly. So, you know, the kids are out there. If you have connections at a school, or you can find connections at a school that's in the area you're trying to recruit from, you know, any opportunity that a school has for their kids to get involved in something that's positive, extracurricular, and that they're not responsible for ensuring, right? Which is what we have here. Like they're gonna support that. You know, and I think another thing too, if you are trying to like sell it to one of the schools, talking about the fact that you're serving part of the school population that may not be getting served by the traditional sports programs, because you know they want kids involved in positive things all the time. Like if the school doesn't, there probably shouldn't be a school, right? So I think you'll find a lot more reception to it. Yeah. So yeah, I would target the schools that are in the area you think you're trying to serve, and just start reaching out to them and finding what ends you can get.
Yeah, Tim.
Yeah, and this brings me to a question I have, and I know I've been talking a lot, and I'm sorry, but I'm really interested in this. Now, see, Alex belonged in the Georgia League. That his team was a composite team, which meant that it was from different schools, right? And he went to a small private school that didn't have, you know, a mountain biking team, but they trained with 2 other schools who were bigger schools. Like Walton High School was like always the number 2 school in the state, but their mountain bike teams were club sports, not varsity and everything. I don't know how that works in Ohio, to start a team like a composite team, and what the schools do the schools even have to get involved in it, or?
There's a lot of different options with that kind of, Tim, and I saw the question came in there from Chris too. Like, school-based is awesome, right? If you can get the blessing, if you can get a teacher in the building, you know, it's great. I was a teacher, right? So I was able to help get that going at my school. But we also brought on kids from other schools in the nearby area that didn't have teachers that were excited about it. So we were a school-based team, then we became a composite team to include other kids, and then we broke off into multiple school-based teams. So, and you know, every once in a while you will get a school that's like, we don't want anything to do with you, right? You're going to take our stick and ball sport kids, please, you know, goodbye. But it's pretty rare. But you also, because you're not asking for insurance, you're not really asking for money. You don't really 100% need the blessing of the school in your area. And really, like Roderick said, we're giving them a varsity sport that they can like be stoked about, and we're not asking for money or insurance. And we've got, if you go into coach, you know, like coaching on the NICA website,
Mhm.
there are resources where there's like slide decks and things that administrators and
Right.
principals want to know. That you can be like, hey, like
Okay. Yeah, I'll
this
have
is
to
our
look at that.
safety. Yeah.
Because if I want to start a club sport at Hamilton High School,
Mhm.
I'm just basically asking for their blessing.
Yep.
Is that what it is?
Sure.
Okay.
I mean, you absolutely can, right? And they can start it as an official club sport. There's so many different ways. It can be composite,
Okay.
official club, varsity, homeschoolers. Just a great spot for homeschoolers and stuff.
Right.
I'm
And
gonna-
go ahead. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I'm going to answer a couple of like the quick questions there. Dan asked about state versus and national level races. There's state level, like state championship. Basically every race is a full state race. And then there are cumulative points for teams and for athletes at the end of the series. So there is like an overall winner for individual for the series or the whole season. And there's team winners for the whole season. And then that last race, who wins that last race is then your state championship. But there are no national like championship level races for NICA. Yeah. I don't know if there'll ever be like national. I know that UCI
Maybe not.
just started a high school
Right.
mountain bike festival.
Right.
But and then Chris asked about potential equipment issues. Yep. So bikes are definitely expensive. It is the biggest barrier to our sport is that equipment. A lot of leagues organize team loaner bikes league wide, like some bike shops. I know that a lot of Trek dealers, because Trek is such a big sponsor of NICA, do that. Eric's here in Wisconsin, Eric's Bike and Boards, which I don't know if in Ohio does that. We've also, as a team, had our own kind of like loaner fleet that we can help student athletes without. The cycling community is pretty awesome. I don't know, you're all a part of it, so you're all awesome. But if you say, hey, I need a bike for a kid that wants to be involved with this team, and you put it out kind of on social media and get those feelers out there, a lot of times a bike comes your way. This year is tough, right? I don't know if you've been to a bike shop. Trying to get a small mountain bike that isn't $3,000 plus is tough right now. But I think that'll start to come down. There's also some scholarship and equipment funds that are kind of like in the works nationally that teams might be able to apply for. But a lot of times if you reach out and you ask, the greater cycling community provides for you. Anthony, you've been amazing and patient. I see your hand up. Let's go to you, Anthony.
All right. So a couple things about first the equipment. So we started a 501c3 in Ashland, and we're able to get grant money, which is huge. If you can do something like that, that requires a little bit of organization, but we have grant money through foundation in Ashland that's supporting us, and then also there are grant opportunities for NICA teams through specialized foundation or outright fund.
Outright, yep.
And that's a really easy grant to write, and you can also do that for trail systems. We built a pump track in Ashland with an outright grant. So that's a really cool way to get funds for your equipment, for your team. And I just had a question, because our team is going to be a composite team because of all the rural areas that we serve here in Ashland. It's, Ashland City is not a big city at all. So the question is going to be, well, is this going to interfere with things like cross country, football, soccer? And, I'm sure there's going to be some interference there, but I was just wondering, if we had an idea about when the races were going to start and when we anticipated them, being done with for the year, or if that's still too soon to know.
I'll let Jen comment on that.
Yeah.
one.
It is a little soon. A lot of it is going to depend on what venues get certified. As we know, some of them hold water a little bit longer than others. My goal, and Mike, you'll have to correct me because I'm not 100% on the time frames, but it would be to have like 2 in August, 2 in September, in terms of fall. And then I think, April 1st is when you can start having like 6 events kind of like to get your team stoked, or like start recruiting people, leading up until, what is it, like I forget when the date is.
Yeah. So July 1st is
Yeah.
when like full on season can start. And yeah, different leagues in kind of do different times, right? Racing usually starts kind of late August and can run through kind of late October, depending on kind of like your region and the weather and stuff.
Yeah. So we in Pennsylvania, to kind of give you guys an idea of how we operate. So like Jen says, we try to get because I think Larry asked earlier, like, when do we know about events? And we try to get them out as soon as we can to you all as possible. Once we kind of have all of our ducks in a row, permitting done, we've got those dates locked down. As we do them more often and we kind of have a predictable schedule, we can get them out sooner. Typically, we try to have that available when we can get all of us together at a leaders summit. It's like this super awesome, like, here's the schedule. Gifts of COVID, that all changes, but early spring is when we try to get that all to you so we can start planning. Pit zone, like the registration process opens in Pennsylvania. Our weather is similar, just like Jen was saying to you. We don't start to the end of August. Gives people a little bit of time to get acclimated. School gets started, practices are rolling, and we'll do maybe an early season event late August. The majority of our events roll through kind of September, October. We've pushed season into November 2 years ago, and weather starts to get a little questionable as we push that far into the season. And a lot of that is as we've grown, we've added more than 4 events, and we start to do 5 and have even tried 6. And that starts to it gets tough trying to work around other people's schedules and working with weather. So September, October tend to be prime. You can do some stuff. It tends to be kind of late August, like Mike had mentioned. And when we start to push into November, usually that's rain delays. And then we just kind of do a dance to the rain gods and hope that it doesn't rain or snow on us during season.
Quick aside, it snowed at the Wisconsin State Championship every year, the 7 years that I've done it, on pre-ride day. And then it's been beautiful on race day. So the mountain bike gods are always smiling at us on race day, but it's freezing cold and hailing and snowing on the day.
The day you're supposed to pre-ride. Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just out of respect of humans' time. We're at 10 minutes after. I don't want to shut this down, but I'm going to go through like 2 last things, and then anybody that would want to stay on, if they've got some burning questions, comments, if Jen would be willing to stay on, I'll stay on. Melissa Davies, you can go hang out with your humans. Thank you so much after we do that, or you can stay on. But if you are stoked about this, you're interested, your next steps, if you want to do this, is get to that ohiomtb.org and click on the Contact Us button. And you can sign up as, an interested athlete, an interested coach, a parent, just a member of the community. Because we don't only need coaches to do this. You need volunteers, you need event staff. We need everything to make these amazing programs happen for kids and communities. So that's your next steps to be a part of this. Anything else, Jen, closing words before we kind of let it open for questions and hang out for a bit?
I just wanted to say thank you again to everyone who took the time at 7 o'clock on a Monday to come get the information and showing your interest again and spreading the word. So it's really exciting for me, and it was really exciting to see so many people on the call. And yeah, I'm just so many excites and happy feels.
Roderick, I saw your hand up. Yeah.
Hey, I also want to throw out there before I go, thanks to everybody for coming and showing interest and the willingness to help spread the word and get involved. If you kind of want to get even more of a feel for like sort of the philosophy and attitude of the Ohio Mountain Bike League specifically, there is a podcast called The Gravel Lot. It is the next 2 weeks of episodes the first week is Jen, and then the next week is me talking about the league and our vision for that. So if you kind of want to get some insight into our brains and sort of what drives us and makes us passionate about this project, you should go subscribe to that podcast and give a listen to it starting this next coming week.
Awesome. Thank you, Roderick. I also have we'll go to Tim, but I also have one bit of homework for everybody. I'm going to send everybody that registered for this YouTube video of like kind of what a NICA event can feel like. So we're not going to watch it here, but like, it's a great video. It gives me the goosebumps every time I watch it. I am in it, which is a little weird. So I'm like telling you to go watch a video that I'm in. But it was before I worked for NICA, is when I was just like a normal old Wisconsin coach. So I'll send it in an email, kind of follow up and just saying thank you and send the link. But it's awesome. It's fun. It's funny. Yeah. One quote from one of my athletes is he falls and then he says, "That hurt like a butt cheek on a stick." So, I mean, it's ridiculous, silly goodness. Go watch it. It's funny. You'll be entertained and you'll get the goosebumps. So, and look for Ghostbusters, because that's my team dressed up as Ghostbusters in the woods. All right. Thank you, everybody. Like, officially, we'll call this the official end. If anybody's got to go, we won't be upset if you leave at this point. But if you want to hang out and kind of shoot the breeze and ask questions, I'll hang out for a bit. And Jen, are you willing to hang out for a bit? Cool. I probably have to go in about 13 minutes at the latest to put kids to bed.
Okay.
But all right. Thank you, everybody.
I had a question. Can you hear me?
Yeah, is this
Yes.
Anthony? Hi, Anthony.
Yeah, it's Anthony again. So we're ready to, take the big leap with coaches and everything here. So what's some tangible first steps that we should do to kind of get going so that we hit the ground running here with our coaches and get our kids in the program next year?
Well, Jen, your pit zone is not going to open until next spring, right?
Right. But
Yeah.
I'd say if you could create like a tentative roster again, so that way we can have that information just to get an idea of how many kids are coming from the area. That's
Okay.
one huge thing, as well as like we can help promoting it. And then Mike, in terms of looking at like coaches training timeline, maybe you want to touch on that?
Yeah, I mean, the pit zone will open for fall coaches. So pit zone is like a capital P pit zone is like how you like register to be a coach, how do you register student athletes, how you start all your kind of coach education and stuff in there. So pit zone for fall will open March 1st of next year.
Okay.
And that's when you can kind of start all your coach education and team registration process and stuff. Student athletes open on April 1st. And that's like the earliest that you can start kind of activities with the team. But at some point next spring, we don't have dates for it yet, but there'll be a leader summit in Ohio too, where we can hopefully get together in person. We can get you all that great coach education for you that are like those coaches that are excited about it, that want to be those head coaches, that want to start programs and already have programs, which will probably happen in that kind of like February, March, April time as well. And that's just a great time to like bring any other interested coaches that you have to a summit where we can come together and do some great learning. Other than that, I think it's, if you're interested in other mountain bikey skills things, you can do it. But again, you don't have to go out and like, be a BICP level 1 or a PIMBA or anything. I think it's just like you're ahead of the game already, Anthony. You're 501c3. You've got some of that organizational support there. I think it's recruit other adults that want to be a part, that are excited about this, and kids. But like, if you have great coaches, you've got more capacity to bring on more kids too.
Yeah. So I guess there's just, is there a certain amount of money that is required for each team to raise, or is it more about the people?
Yeah, the team fees are not that astronomical. I don't know what like Ohio's team fees are going to be starting off, Jen, but it's not like hockey. If anybody like played hockey or like travel soccer growing up, we were like, how much is it per athlete? It's like NICA, I think, does a pretty good job of keeping the costs like reasonable for families.
And ours, ours again, it's a tentative number, but we're looking at like per student athlete around like it'd be $450. And if I included the link actually in the chat where I kind of broke down what goes where. So they have, it's like they have their league fee, which goes towards basically making sure all the practices and everything are insured. And that's what that covers. And then you have your NICA national fee, which again, like helps national run because they have people that come out here and train us. And again, do these calls, which takes time. And And so like that's what part of that goes for. And then from a team standpoint, if you guys have team fees, that's again up to each individual team as to like what that would look like. And then the event fees. So that's kind of like, those are all the pieces that go into that like $450 amount. And again, something we're working on is creating a scholarship called the Inclusivity Fund, which our goal is $10,000 for the launch, where if like kids maybe can't afford that $450, they can apply to receive the Inclusivity Fund scholarship, at which point it would help cover some of their costs, or through team fundraising could help cover some of those costs.
Okay. All right, perfect.
I think the other comment that I have for those of you that aren't killing it like Anthony and already have the 501c3 and are just like, I want to start a team, email Jen, email the real Jen, and let the real Jen know that you want to start a team. And she is your direct line to get you the invitation to get into that pit zone, to start the registration process, and can start it. So get a hold of Jen directly. It's what we still do here in Pennsylvania. If I have someone that gets a hold of me and like, we want to start a team, I'm like, I need an email, and then I can help kind of send you down that path. So reach out to Jen if you're interested. That's your like baseline. Get a hold of the league director.
And if I can be of help, sorry.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, if I can be of help in any way, guys, just let me know. Just reach out to Ashland Bike Company and we'll do what we can, because we want to have other teams in other areas, and we want to be supportive of the whole program too. So awesome. we just reached out to a law firm, like, hey, we need a nonprofit, and they were like, sure, we're going to do that, and we're going to cover all the costs to do it. And I was like, cool. So I mean, reach out to people and get that going. And totally write a grant to Outride, because it's a pretty easy process to do, and it's been pretty successful for us. Yeah, and to like piggyback off of what Anthony said, and I'll come back, like, you don't need to be a 501c3 either, right? It's like how you get grants and how you can apply for some of the other stuff, but you can still accept donations and other things to not be one. My team was not a 501c3 the first 5 years we were in existence. Then I was like, okay, we probably should do it. So don't be like, oh gosh, now I got to be a 501c3 and I got to start this and I got to do these other things. It can be a nice tool down the road. But like Anthony said, if you want that outright grant and you're not already a 501c3, if you can partner with a school and like do those other things, schools can apply for those outright grants and stuff too. Yeah, I had a question. Can you hear me? Yeah, is this Anthony? Hi, Anthony. Yeah, it's Anthony again. So we're ready to, take the big leap with coaches and everything here. So what's some tangible first steps that we should do to kind of get going so that we hit the ground running here with our coaches and get our kids in the program next year? Well, Jen, your pit zone is not going to open until next spring, right?
Right. But I'd say if you could create like a tentative roster again, so that way we can have that information just to get an idea of how many kids are coming from the area. That's one huge thing, as well as like we can help promoting it. And then Mike, in terms of looking at like coaches training timeline, maybe you want to touch on that?
Yeah, I mean, the pit zone will open for fall coaches. So pit zone is like a capital P pit zone is like how you like register to be a coach, how do you register student athletes, how you start all your kind of coach education and stuff in there. So pit zone for fall will open March 1st of next year. And that's when you can kind of start all your coach education and team registration process and stuff. Student athletes open on April 1st. And that's like the earliest that you can start kind of activities with the team. But at some point next spring, we don't have dates for it yet, but there'll be a leader summit in Ohio too, where we can hopefully get together in person. We can get you all that great coach education for you that are like those coaches that are excited about it, that want to be those head coaches, that want to start programs and already have programs, which will probably happen in that kind of like February, March, April time as well. And that's just a great time to like bring any other interested coaches that you have to a summit where we can come together and do some great learning. Other than that, I think it's, if you're interested in other mountain bikey skills things, you can do it. But again, you don't have to go out and like, be a BICP level 1 or a PIMBA or anything. I think it's just like you're ahead of the game already, Anthony. You're 501c3. You've got some of that organizational support there. I think it's recruit other adults that want to be a part, that are excited about this, and kids. But like, you gotta, if you have great coaches, you've got more capacity to bring on more kids too.
Yeah. So I guess there's just, is there a certain amount of money that is required for each team to raise, or is it more about the people?
Yeah, the team fees are not that astronomical. I don't know what like Ohio's team fees are going to be starting off, Jen, but it's not like hockey. If anybody like played hockey or like travel soccer growing up, we were like, how much is it per athlete? It's like NICA, I think, does a pretty good job of keeping the costs like reasonable for families.
And ours, ours, again, it's a tentative number, but we're looking at like per student athlete around like it'd be $450. And if I included the link actually in the chat where I kind of broke down what goes where. So they have, it's like they have their league fee, which goes towards basically making sure all the practices and everything are insured. And that's what that covers. And then you have your NICA national fee, which again, like helps national run because they have people that come out here and train us and again, do these calls, which takes time. And so like, that's what part of that goes for. And then from a team standpoint, if you guys have team fees, that's again, up to each individual team as to like what that would look like. And then the event fees. So that's kind of like, those are all the pieces that go into that like $450 amount. And again, something we're working on is creating a scholarship called the Inclusivity Fund, which our goal is $10,000 for the launch, where if like kids maybe can't afford that $450, they can apply to receive the Inclusivity Fund scholarship, at which point it would help cover some of their costs, or through team fundraising could help cover some of those costs.
Okay. All right, perfect.
I think the other comment that I have for those of you that aren't killing it like Anthony and already have the 501c3 and are just like, I want to start a team, email Jen, email the real Jen, and let the real Jen know that you want to start a team. And she is your direct line to get you the invitation to get into that pit zone to start the registration process and can start it. So get a hold of Jen directly. It's what we still do here in Pennsylvania. If I have someone that gets a hold of me and like, we want to start a team, I'm like, I need an email, and then I can help kind of send you down that path. So reach out to Jen if you're interested. That's your like baseline. Get a hold of the league director.
And if I can be of help, sorry.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, if I can be of help in any way, guys, just let me know. Just reach out to Ashland Bike Company and we'll do what we can, because we want to have other teams in other areas and we want to be supportive of the whole program too. So awesome. we just reached out to a law firm like, hey, we need a nonprofit, and they were like, sure, we're going to do that, and we're going to cover all the costs to do it. And I was like, cool. So reach out to people and get that going. And totally write a grant to Outride, because it's a pretty easy process to do, and it's been pretty successful for us.
Yeah, and to like piggyback off of what Anthony said, and I'll come back, like you don't need to be a 501c3 either, right? It's like how you get grants and how you can apply for some other stuff, but you can still accept donations and other things to not be one. My team was not a 501c3 the first 5 years we were in existence. Then it was like, okay, we probably should do it. So don't be like, oh gosh, now I got to be a 501c3 and I got to start this and I got to do these other things. It can be a nice tool down the road. But like Anthony said, if you want that outright grant and you're not already a 501c3, if you can partner with a school and like do those other things, schools can apply for those outright grants and stuff too. Yeah, this has been great. Thank you so much. I'm super stoked about the Ohio League. And just seeing interscholastic mountain biking explode in Ohio. So thank you.
Yeah. Again, thank you everyone. If you have any questions, please shoot me an email. I'm pretty responsive, usually within 24 hours, most of the time, much less. Mike can tell you. So yeah, let me know how I can help you best.
All right. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Have a good night.
Bye. Have a good night.